Hello everyone, I am the administrator of Group 11. In our project, we focused on the airport domain, and our goal was to build an object-relational database system that models how flights, passengers, weather, and airport units are connected. At the beginning of the project, I worked on designing the class diagram and the extended ER diagram. I started by analyzing how an airport works, what kinds of units exist, how flights are organized, and what kind of data they share. Then I created the main structure using object types. For example, I first defined a base type called airport unit, and then I created its subtitles, runway, and machinery. Each of them has its own attributes and an overridden method called getInfo that returns a different type of description depending on the object. I also designed the flight object, which includes schedule time, weather information, and a list of passengers stored as a nested table. Each flight is connected to the one airport unit using a ref, and it can also reference passengers. After finishing the diagrams, I made sure that our design was consistent with the SQL implementation. My main role was to organize our workflow, help my teammates connect their parts, and make sure the logic of the database matches our diagrams. So basically, I was in charge of the overall design and coordination.
Hi, I'm Almila Demir, and I worked mainly on the SQL implementation part in our project. After the diagrams were completed, I started by creating the object types and tables in Oracle SQL. First, I created the passenger object and the passengers table, and then I added a few sample passengers to test it. After that, I moved on the airport unit object and its two subtypes, such as runway and machinery. Once those were ready, I created the airport units table, which can hold both subtypes in the same table because of inheritance. Next, I worked on the flight object type. I included attributes such as ID, code, status, schedule time, and estimated time. And also, I added a weather report object inside it to store weather data. For passengers, I used a nested table type called flight passenger tab, which stores all passengers in a specific flight. This way, each flight can have its own list of passengers, each with a seat number and a reference to a passenger object. Then I inserted two flights. One was a departure flight, and the other one is arrival flight. The departure flight had two passengers sitting in seats 12A and 12B, and I connected them using refs from the passenger table. I also made sure to test everything with the ref, and table functions to see how the data connects. Like, for example, by using the table function, I could list all the passengers inside one flight, and with the deref function, I could print their full names or the name of the runway they were assigned to. So my main focus was to make sure that all the objects were connected properly and that the data could be queried easily without breaking the structure.
Hello, I am Ozan, and I worked on the methods and procedures part of our project. After we completed the structure and added the data, I focused on making our objects active and functional using member, static, and map methods. I started with the airport unit type and its subtypes, where I implemented the getInfo function. This function is overridden in both runway and machinery to show details specific to each, like runway, length, or machinery capacity. Then I worked on the flight object, where I added several useful methods. One of them is the map function, priority minutes, which calculates how many minutes a flight is delayed. I also created the member procedure set late to mark flights as late and record the reason. In addition, I added two static functions, count by status and list by status, to easily check how many flights share the same status, such as on time or delayed. For the weather report object, I wrote a function that returns all related weather logs using system reference cursor, adding in flight weather log. I implemented three methods: show, add log, and compare. For example, show prints a simple log in like log 501 2025, 10th of October 8:55, where departure check. After creating these methods, I tested them in SQL. I used flight.list by status to list late flights with their delay durations, and then tested the set delay procedure to update the flight status. The results showed updated AT456 delayed ATS slots, which confirmed everything worked perfectly. This stage clearly demonstrated the integration of object-oriented concepts into Oracle database, enhancing both the flexibility and functionality of our system. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We are Group 11, and this was our Airport Object Relational Database project.